morning and welcome to Morning Cafe this lovely Friday, the 29th of September 2023. It is the last Friday of this month. Mwisho wa mwezi imefika. So yes, iko shangwe na vigelegele. Weekendi iko hapa. Ni weekendi imefika. Tunakwenda kujirusha. Well, my name is Fred Ndimule. How hot is the coffee where you are?
On Monday, he was saying that I was the one singing. Now, who is singing?
Oh, see who's Nient Man.
Yes, yes.
He has a motivation.
Do you want us to start talking about your dancing skills?
Monday is coming.
In a few, from around 8 a.m. On that whole Miondoko and all that. I'm used to only standing a ringita, but definitely there's some Fridays, so definitely expect all that. But then today I'm actually curious because the whole panel is going to be women here, just getting the women perspective when it comes to the state of the nation and when it comes to their role in matters politics and what really affects them, really.
Mm-hmm. Definitely looking forward to that conversation. And of course, you can chime in on that conversation at TV47 News, on X at TV47 Kenya, on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. I'm Flora Limuki, and welcome.
To the top story now, more than 1,500 party members and guests are expected to attend a United Democratic Alliance Party National Council meeting today at the Bomas of Kenya, led by the party leader, President William Ruto. The meeting is intended to lay strategies to strengthen the party ahead of elections slated for December this year. This inaugural NGC comes amid calls for the dissolution of affiliates within Kenya Kwanza, a message that UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala has restated severally. Malala says the party will launch a movement targeting 50 million members that would be driven at the grassroots level. Yes, and from that top story, let's get the day's diary before we take a look at what's headlining in the papers today.
Well, and on today's diary, we kickstart with that story on President Ruto's program today in Nairobi County, as is expected to attend the UDA Governing Council meeting at the Bomas of Kenya. And away from that, it's online safety engagement forum today urges stronger measures against online child exploitation in Kenya, gathering success stories to boost youth online safety. This will feature the CS ICT Eliud Owalo. And away from that, State of the Film Industry Summit 2023, the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts through the KFCB in collaboration with KFTB and the county government of Nairobi will host the first ever State of the Film Industry in Kenya, and the Honorable CS Ababu Namwamba will officiate at that summit. And Polytrack Africa Research release has outlined that public opinion on government preparedness in response to the predicted El Nino rains, approval rating of members of National Assembly for the past 1 year, and approval rating of members of the Senate for the past 1 year. And away from that, it is World Heart Day. This is an important annual event witnessed every year on the 29th of September. The day is marked to raise awareness about the heart disease and its preventive measures to manage the cardiovascular diseases. That's what we have on our diary this morning. Of course, we keep on updating you as we move on. But time now to look at the dailies.
Well, yes, we kick off with the Standard this Friday. And on the Standard today, the big headline there, experts, tougher times lie ahead. There's a finance analysis. Specialists are warning that the country will experience economic downturn and are advising the government and Kenyans to invest in agriculture and related sectors to ride out the storm. Stories on page 2 and 3 of the Standard today, and at least they offer ways of how to get out of hole. Number 1, revitalizing agriculture. Number 2, contain inflation. 3, sustainable debt. And 4, diversify export products. Those are just some of the solutions offered by experts on how to get out of the current mess. The other big headline on the front page of the Standard this Friday, election ghost comes alive in Ruto-Raila talks. where former IEBC commissioners tell of how their lives have been turned upside down after they disputed last year's presidential election, with Chairman Chebukati snubbing the team, saying it will be a betrayal to employees who died as a result of their work. The story is on page 4 of the Standard. Other highlights on the top strip: ex-KEBS boss forfeits half his wealth in probe. That story is on page 10. Elsewhere, opinion split on new KCSE grading. Story on page 6 of the Standard. Of course, they're highlighting the Pulse magazine also on the front page. Remember, a version of Banjuka Friday coming up later, headlining the beautiful Bansi Kimoyo. Do stand by for that later on. In sports, Kenyans cautious on AFCON bid win. So stories on the sports pages 35 and 36. On the back page, yes, the back page of the Standard, it's time to give our fans a reason to smile again. And yes, quite some opinion on whether or not Kenya will be able to host this big event, of course, alongside Tanzania and Uganda. And those are the big stories on the Standard this Friday.
Well, and on the Daily Nation this morning, an interesting headline there: 67 MPs to lose seats. That is, reforms a separate bid to reduce constituencies to 100 is before the dialogue committee. An extra 40 units face the X. And just to mention some of the current 27 protected constituencies include Mbuthia, Galole, Bura, Lamu East, Lamu West, Otaveta, Wundai, Mwatate, Voi, North Home, Saku, Laisamis, Isiolo South, Siakago, Kilome, Daragwa, Tetu, Odhaya, Mukuroini, Kangema, Mathioya, Samburu East, Marakwet East, Keyo North, and Mogotio, Vihiga, and Budalangi. And ahead of the boundaries review, a member of the House Justice Committee revealed 67 constituencies now risk being scrapped as they do not meet the average population size. Quite an interesting read there, and it is featured on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. And still on the Daily Nation, how to tame a runaway living cost. On the right strip there, pictured the CS Treasury, CS Ndungu, the Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research and Analysis, KIPRA, state think tank has proposed measures to caution Kenyans from harsh economic times, including reduction of value-added tax to make cooking oil cheaper, and the gradual elimination of subsidies to ease the burden on consumers. And still on the Daily Nation, 44 billion shillings bonus for tea farmers. Good news there for Kenyan tea farmers, as KTDA will wire the record payout to 600,000 farmers affiliated to its 54 countries from Monday. The improved earnings are attributed to better prices in the international market. And some matters, IEBC there, Cherera 4, we were forced to quit. Details on that story is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Of course, a section of them appeared before the National Dialogue Committee yesterday. And Rai family millions frozen, bank account locked over Rao. That story is on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. And on the back page of the Daily Nation, last minute rush to deal with El Nino. That is, the national government there has embarked on a last minute rush to mobilize resources to prepare for El Nino rains, even as it emerged that cabinet and ministries still lacked substantial budgets for disaster management. And part of the government strategy is sharing information gathered by early warning systems. And state starts phasing out second generation ideas. That's what we have on the back page of the Daily Nation. And just a mention of some matters football there. 2027 AFCON journey will be one of a kind. Pledges. Sports CS Ababu Namwamba.
All right, and even as we close to matters business here on the Business Daily, the big story for Business Daily is billionaire Ndegwa family expands its empire with new deals. And goes on to say AIG Kenya, Fahari buys latest in portfolio and past moves targeted high growth sectors. Other stories making it to Business Daily is tea farmers set for record 44 billion Kenyan shillings bonus payout. And on the right side, that is on that ticker there, workers struggle in spite of minimum wage rise. It goes on to say a rally in prices of household items, including food, has left workers in a worse financial position, in spite of a 12% minimum wage increase last year to help them cope with the high cost of living. And on matters commercial, banks cut lending as defaults increase to 586 billion Kenyan shillings. And in matters company, Cooperative Bank overtakes KCB at bows. Cooperative Bank of Kenya has overtaken KCB Group to become the second most valuable leader on the Nairobi Securities Exchange as the latter's share price continued to fall. On the life page, why Willie Mutunga wept. Reminds me, Fred, do you know the verse that why Jesus wept? Which verse is it is?
John. Yes, I know it's 11:35. Somewhere.
John 3. It's John?
No, it's not John 3:16. John 11:35.
Come on, you.
Okay. When you're in guitar, you like showing off, especially on such matters. Just yesterday, he was speaking to us in French. Anyway.
It's not showing off. It's just general
It's just
knowledge.
being you on a Friday.
Okay, brethren.
Tuangazie masuala kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Taifa Leo Ijumaa hii. Watenda nyumbani wabunge 40 katika hatari ya kupoteza viti baada ya maeneo wanayowakilisha kuwa na idadi ndogo ya watu. And this is one of the conversations we were having yesterday morning on the boundaries review, because constituencies that are unable to meet the population quota are at risk of being dissolved. Some of them were protected, 27 of them, on the front page of the Daily Nation, only for purposes of the initial review. The second review is up by... It's actually overdue. We should have done it by March next year. Whether or not we'll be able to do it without the IBC
Interesting enough,
is another story. So wanasema ufichuzi kwamba karibu maeneo bunge 40 nchini yatafutiliwa mbali kwa sababu hayajatimiza idadi ya watu wanaohitajika kulingana na sheria, umeibua wasiwasi miongoni mwa wabunge wanaowakilisha. Hayo yalifichuka Jumatano wakati wa warsha kuhusu mageuzi katika mfumo wa uchaguzi uliofanyika mjini Nakuru. Habari kamili katika ukurasa wa pili, na hapo kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, picha za wabunge kadhaa ambao maeneo bunge yao huenda yakafutiliwa mbali. Aidan Welie Keinan mmoja wao, Sara Korere, Fabian Muli, Rafael Wanjala, Robert Mbui, Kiatama Marwa, William Kamket na Obo Ruweida. Habari zingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Cherera 4 wakaa ngumu, Chebukati akihepa kikao. Kundi la Chebukati lasema lingesaliti wafanyakazi wa tume walioteswa na kuuawa wakiwa kazini. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Kwingineko, wagombeaji washambulia Trump kwa kususia mdahalo, na haya ni kwenye mdahalo wa chama cha Republican kule Marekani, ambapo aliyekuwa rais Donald Trump alisusia mdahalo huo. Pale juu kwenye Taifa Leo, mipango ya kukabili El Nino yaanza, naibu rais aongoza kikao cha wakuu serikalini kuweka mikakati. Kwingineko kwenye spoti, Carabao City nje, Chelsea wapiga hatua. City walionja kichapo cha kwanza katika mechi 9 msimu huu. Ukurasa wa 20 habari za spoti pale, na hayo ndio yamepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo hii Ijumaa.
Right, let's have a look at the Star this morning. Okay, on the headline there. On the Star this morning, UDA to name 2 more deputy party leaders. This is according to its constitution. 3 deputies are to be in the office, but only Rigathi has been named so far. And major changes, Asakaja and Owen Baya in race to fill the 2 vacant positions. And of course, that NGC for UDA party, they are happening today at the Bomas of Kenya, starting from 9 a.m. this morning, sorry. And on the right strip of the Star this morning, left strip, sorry, we want the servers opened. I was forced to flee at night to save my life, says former IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit on Thursday, narrated to the National Dialogue Committee how she fled the country to save her life after caving into the grave threat to her life. And that story is on page 7 of the Star this morning. Outrage over scheme to slash funding to parties. A government has announced plans to relook at the political parties funding model with review of scaling it down, claiming the current arrangement is unsustainable. And still on the Star, Why Pamoja bid won 2027 AFCON hosting rights. That is on page 34. The Star this morning, and they said their political goodwill from the 3 East African heads of state immensely contributed to a successful Pamoja bid that on Wednesday won the rights for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania to host the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. And an interesting picture there of senators. When in Rome, senators danced to traditional Turkana tunes. Of course, they were holding that Senate Mashinani whole week in Turkana County there. And pictured there is the minority leader, Stewart Katsayo there, the speaker, Emerson Kingi. And there's also the majority leader there, Aaron Cheruiyot, dressed in the Turkana attire yesterday as they were crowned leaders in that community. And that is what we have on the Star this morning.
There's actually, on the top strip, there's actually a very interesting read there. Understanding Rigiji through cocktail party effect. That's one of those must-read kind of, bits. I think that's on page 4. Just understanding the deputy president, but in a whole cocktail party effect kind of way. Yeah,
I think there's also another op-ed there of is Ruto's America's new appointment for Africa. Interesting read there as well.
Oh, yes. Now away from matters Kenya, as we cross the borders in Uganda. In Daily Monitor, the front page says government should own all land, says top official. Goes on to say that Uganda Land Commission boss proposes rewriting of constitutional provision which says land belongs to citizens, with the amendment now vesting ownership in the government. More on that is on page 4. And below there, there's a very interesting photo of a gentleman trying to cross a bridge, but well not constructed. That particular bridge, quite narrow, by the way, crossing his border through it. And it says, on the edge, locals want district heads to roll over a neglected bridge. On the right side of Daily Monitor, Museveni quizzes Alupo Nabanja on 2 billion shillings UN trip. These are just some of the headlines making it to Daily Monitor and what is trending in Uganda. Inside war over KIU medical students enrollment, and China hails its relations with Uganda at anniversary. On the bottom scroll there in yellow, Uganda plans second satellite with no gain from first one. And on the top there, matters their scoop, David Lutalo, I'm not here to play. Okay, that is what is happening in Uganda.
Tuvuke border tuende Tanzania. Tuangazie gazeti la Mwananchi. Habari kuu pale, wimbi la wanafunzi latishia ubora elimu. Mwanafunzi aliyemcharanga mwalimu kwa panga sota rumande, story tofauti ile. Habari kuu pale, wimbi la wanafunzi la Arusha na Zanzibar, na wanaongelea mambo ambapo kuna uwanja mpya kujengwa Arusha, uwanja wenye kuweza kuandaa mchezo mbele ya watazamaji 30,000 seater stadium in Arusha. Interesting, they're already talking about a new stadium in Tanzania. With this probably the same conversation should come here. Vidokezo vingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi.
Well, in Kenya it's renovating them, not building them.
Well, either way, that discussion needs to start now. Simulizi Profesa Swaya alivyopona tatizo la kisukari. Na kwingineko, Nape, upigaji kura kwa mtandao unawezekana. Hizo ndizo habari kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, habari zinazopewa kipaumbele kule Tanzania.
Well, and on the Citizen in Tanzania this morning, how Tanzania can dream big through AFCON. So Tanzania there is still celebrating that big win there. Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda stand to benefit in a big way through their hosting of the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations finals, with analysis urging the countries not to waste the opportunity. And pictured there is Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam. And 30,000 is the capacity of a new stadium in Arusha, the Hexagon, that's what they call it, whose construction is expected to begin next year. This is according to their sports director, Ali Mayei. And still on the Citizen in Tanzania, Envoy touts innovation cooperation to attain agro goals. And still headlining in the Citizen, calls on unity, fair elections, parenting, mark Maulid Day in Tanzania yesterday. That is what's headlining on the Citizen in Tanzania this morning.
Right, now to the cartoons this morning. That is on page 16 of both the Standard and also the Daily Nation. Daily Nation touches on the ongoing bipartisan talks and how the former immediate IBC commissioners presented themselves yesterday to the committee, National Dialogue Committee. And on page 16 of the Standard, talking about the AFCON 2027 and the whole Pamoja bid. And how matters politics really played a huge part. You can begin with the Standard this morning, page 16, ladies and gentlemen. Gadod had this one for us. So one gentleman says there, gentlemen, the real hard work begins. And what you're actually talking about here.
Interesting, the fat cats are back. You see, they see opportunity in everything.
Every bit, yeah.
When you're talking about climate change and climate action, they saw opportunity in that. Now they're seeing an opportunity in this new-found fame with Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda hosting the AFCON tournaments. Yes, definitely some money will be coming our way.
And actually, you know, for this, they actually know that if you really miss a tender in Kenya to probably be involved in building a stadium, well, you have Uganda to look for a tender there, and you also have Tanzania.
I think our cats are fatter. When it comes to corruption, we have the biggest cats, the biggest fat cats in this region. I think we are the undisputed champions in the region. So yes, I think the fattest pigs, the fattest corruption cats, and they are angling themselves for AFCON 2027. Gado says that.
But this morning, I think Daily Nation really is quite interesting for me.
Okay.
Daily Nation, page 16 again. What do you see, Flo?
There's two gentlemen there pictured. One who seems to be representing the Azimio side, and the other one representing the Kenya Kwanza side. And the Azimio one there with a sufuria over his head. There's another huge kind of, is it like a cash box there featured?
The ballot box.
Yeah, the ballot box, yeah. And he says, or she says, leave me out of this, I delivered. I could assume these colors tend to represent our electoral body. Yeah. For me, the Daily Nation is just there. We have had this conversation of bipartisan talks and IEBC for quite some time. Yeah. So for me, the Standard wins this morning.
Idi Nabamba.
Yeah, Indo iko juu sasa. Because it is interesting. Every time we are looking forward to a big event, be it AFCON, be it the climate summit, be it even the upcoming ICT summit, we start, I don't know if it's a East African problem, but we start planning for things once they're almost there. Well, you've had years and years of regimes coming in and going out promising to build stadiums, and it's been a chorus, a song and a song and a song. We've waited for years. You know that AFCON is here. That is when we're now rushing to hand over the stadiums to the military to actually renovate them. So I think it's also a wake-up call to prepare for things earlier, not to wait for the last minute in order to...
My understanding is totally different.
Yeah.
This is all about corruption. Whenever you see these fat cats,
So it is about.
they're just looking for tenders.
And for them, they know if they're going to be, if it's 2027, so they're going to be fixing it 2026 there, because they know the window for accountability is narrow. So no one is really going to be checking for the nitty-gritties. Oh, this one, this particular ministry or this particular person was to do this. So the whole window there is narrow. But then right now, 2023 and 2027, they have about, what, 4 years?
To prepare.
To prepare.
Because
so
it's a whole industry. Corruption in Kenya it's an industry in itself. There's a whole system and mechanism that it even has a CEO and everything. I think they even have EGMs every year. That you have to plan out everything, and the shareholders as well.
Yeah.
So the fat cats are angling ahead of anything that may come our way in the name of AFCON 2027. Interesting.
Yeah. Again, the silver lining, the presidential candidates for 2027 will have an interesting time. They're telling us we delivered the stadiums that have been promised for the last 10 years.
No, next up is World Cup.
Thanks to AFCON.
They will be promising us the World Cup. Anyway, interesting.
Oh, yes.
Well, today we will be having a women's perspective as our main discussion today. Do stand by our panelists today: Esther Irungu, nominated MCA; Angel Mbuthia, Youth League Chair, Jubilee Party; Lida Banja, advocate of the High Court of Kenya; and Nellie Chepkemoi Langat, politician and national youth leader. That after the break. Remember our question this morning we are asking, do you support, did we actually even share this question with our audiences? I guess not, but I think we should. Do you support the proposal to reduce the number of constituencies to about 100? This proposal was given yesterday to the National Dialogue Committee by former Attorney General Professor Githu Muigai as an ongoing discussion about boundaries review, which is coming up. This is a discussion we had yesterday. It's headlining on the front page of the Daily Nation today. And do you support that proposal to reduce the number of constituencies to about 100? You can continue sharing your feedback on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Do stand by for this conversation after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. finder of our question this morning. Do you support that proposal to reduce the number of constituencies to about 100? Continue sharing your feedback with us on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. This morning, we're privileged to have in studio, on my left, Angel Mbuthia, Youth League Chair, Jubilee Party. Karibu sana. It's good to have you in studio. On my immediate right, Nellie Chepkemoi Langat, politician and national youth leader.
Thank you.
Good to have you for a second time on this panel.
Yeah, sure. Asante.
And Esther Irungu, nominated MCA, Kiambu County.
Yes, sure.
Karibu sana. It's good to have you in studio. Ladies, today we want to look at what has been happening mainly centered around the Bomas, the bipartisan talks happening at the Bomas of Kenya, but from the women's perspective. A lot has been happening, and one of those is what is headlining on the front page of the Daily Nation. In about 6 months' time, a second review of the names and boundaries of constituencies and wards is coming up. For all intents and purposes, we are behind schedule on this one, simply because it is a very intense exercise that the IEBC itself has admitted would require not less than 18 months to execute. Once a chairperson of the IEBC is named. As it is right now, we still do not have the IEBC. We're still discussing how we will name an IEBC, meaning we won't be able to meet this deadline. And that's a crisis that is on the front page of the Daily Nation today, that some constituencies, once this review is conducted, or once we get to that point where the review is conducted and they fail to meet the population quota, then they stand to be dissolved as constituencies. As that is happening, there's a proposal by the former Attorney General, a separate proposal to reduce the number of constituencies to about 100 from the current 290 before the dialogue committee. Let's start from there. Do you think we are overrepresented now that we're discussing whether or not we should reduce or increase the number of constituencies? Angel, let's start with you. Do you think we're overrepresented, that probably we should be seriously thinking about reducing the number of these electoral units?
Okay, good morning, Fred. I was listening to the former AG yesterday, and he got me at the edge of my seat when he started talking about that being a solution to having a 50-50 a gender equitable legislature. And so I was thinking, okay, that's exciting. So we can have 50 members of parliament who are men and 50 members of parliament who are women. If we had 100 constituencies and every constituency elects 2 members of parliament. That was exciting, but again, I see it as a very logistical issue. We need to sit around again and have a dialogue committee on just that one element, because it's a question of distribution of resources, the question of equity and equality, because when the Constitution talks about ensuring that there is equitable distribution of resources, in that very aspect we see inequity in the same aspect, because we have equal resources going across the country, but other regions feel that they need to have a better allocation of the national cake. So it's a question of distribution of resources. If we are able to answer that question, then having 100 members of parliament would make sense. And then moving forward, we could see how we can have these other, which formula is used to ensure that those resources get to where they deserve to get to, and that people are actually happy about what they are getting from the national cake.
Nellie, one of the initial agenda of this talks was ensuring that the 2/3 gender rule is actually achieved. Yeah. This has been an issue since the promulgation of this constitution. It is one of those things that we have defied as a country for over 13 years since promulgation of the constitution. We have failed, the courts have said we have failed, and we're still continuing this way. Now comes this proposal, especially for the Houses of Parliament, from the former Attorney General, that yes, reduce the number of constituencies to about 100, then each constituency to have 2 members, 1 elected male member and 1 elected female member. Do you think that this, as a formula towards achieving gender equity, it could actually be the way to go?
Well, I kind of agree with the former AG, although the question there would still go back to what Angel has said, the matter of sharing of resources. So for me, I think what I would agree with the AG is having the woman MP and man MP. That's very logical, because in it you're also going to reach the gender threshold at it. But I don't support the having to now reduce, because in his proposal he said reduce the constituencies to 100 and then also scrap off the 47 women rep positions. So for me, I support his proposal where he says that we need to have the women MPs as well, because it will be now increasing more representation of women, hence us being able to achieve or to meet the gender threshold in parliament.
But hasn't that been actually the main problem that, and it's the same conversation we have even with the youth on this panel, that certain groups, and in this case youth and women, appear to be sitting back and waiting for piecemeal affirmative action, because power is taken, power is not given. Women in this country, there was a time that agitation for the rights of women, especially back in the days when we were talking about the Beijing Convention, women were really out fighting for their rights. But it would appear that we've gotten to a point where they're sitting back and waiting for the system to give it to them this way. Because even if we say 2 members of parliament, in some way, it's some sort of affirmative action. Should we still be thinking about affirmative action for women, especially in elective positions right now?
During the last election, okay, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Esther Irungu, MCA Chepkemoi County. During the last election, 2017, there was only 1 elected woman in Chepkemoi MCA. Currently, we have 6. So it's an improvement. Yes. Even Murang'a, same case, we have seen women have been elected compared to the last election, meaning women are trying. It's just that the society has not accepted that women can lead. Mm-hmm. But so when you see like the 50-50 thing, it will help women to rise. Because you see, even when it comes to money, there's some things, elections are so tough. So this kind of corruption, mwanamke usiku hawezani, vita mingi. So when you see the thing of this 50-50 thing to help women to come out. And at least this thing of the two that even men don't support us, because they think once it is passed, we'll overtake them. Mm-hmm. Then the issue of some constituencies being reduced, that's a good thing, because you see currently the country is struggling financially. Mm-hmm. So once they are scrapped, at least kuna pesa zingine zitarudi kwa maendeleo. Mm-hmm.
But don't you think that the problem with the affirmative action, Angel, is the fact that we, to some extent, are abusing it? That even the people the women who get to be nominated or to be fronted for seats that are preserved for women only, including the 47 women representatives, that probably we are not even getting quality from that. For example, in the county assemblies, there's that provision to just nominate women so that we feel the two-thirds gender rule. It probably is one of the proposals that could come up, especially in the National Assembly, to cover that gap as well. That even when we nominate such women, we do not end up with the best, because parties have their own skewed way of coming up with who to nominate.
Fred, I think this gender question, even when I was listening to former AG yesterday, he really pointed out that that's something has become like the elephant in the room. But one thing he said before he started talking about that gender equality question is something to do with the society and how we have socialized the society to embrace women in terms of leadership. When you look at how we have ensured that education is accessed across the country, it is by popularizing it, it is by telling parents, come on, we need to take your kids to school. It's by telling pastoralists, like, we need to remove your kids from nomadism and take them now to school. It took a lot of effort from government and every other stakeholder, and that's the same effort we need to put effort in terms of ensuring that we communicate to Kenyans that we have a better country when we have half of the population on the decision-making table. When we are out there talking about things to do with period poverty, these are things that affect women, but they are not tabled properly in parliament, in county assemblies, because there's no proper representation. And so we have so many of our girls missing out on so much potential just because there's no representation.
If you have women in these houses, is it an issue of quality?
When what I have observed from places like Parliament and County Assembly, today they'll table a motion on national security. Next time they won't talk about foreign policy. Next time they want to talk about health in another aspect. The other time they won't talk about disputes they had in the last sitting. By the time they now want to table a question on, let's say, period poverty or how we can address the question of accessibility of sanitary towels across the country, there is no quorum. When it is time to debate the 2/3 gender rule, there is no quorum. Women have to we have seen women parliamentarians putting on white blazers, white cloths with purple ribbons to say today we are standing on the gap for women to ensure that we pass this bill. But that really never saw the light of day. So it is really a struggle from all fronts. And I expected to see a lot more from the president of this republic, because he promised a lot to women. He talked about having at least even 12 women on cabinet. Now we are seeing less than that. And we are seeing even less women as permanent secretaries. We saw even less women when it came to appointment of nomination of chief administrative secretaries. That shows you where the mind of the president is. And I don't think it is particularly on women.
And thank you for bringing that up. That Women Charter signed last year, months before the election. There were a lot of promises made to women, and she has mentioned quite a number. Do you think that 1 year later, this government has done justice to that promise?
I wouldn't say it has done justice, because even with the current talks, we are having different agendas on the table, and one of it is the issue of women's representation, that is the 2/3 gender rule. But you would want to think that this is something that would make the conversations more focused on it. But instead, when you look at the dialogues that are going on, instead we are having other issues that are being considered a priority. And some of the issues that you'd expect to be maybe a priority, like the issue of gender representation, as well as the issue of economy. These are issues that are not really having that much weight on the table. So I think for us as a country, it's a matter of mindsets as well. I come from a pastoralist community, and I don't think we even have any elected member of county assembly, leave alone a member of parliament. It's only the women rep who is a woman in that county. So I think we need to have such conversations, not just towards elections or even when now we are having such dialogues, but these conversations and changing mindsets of the citizenry as well, in having women come up and out for leadership, yes, should start now, should have started even before, such that when we get to an electioneering period, we have people already having their mindsets change on how women, I mean, we've been to community dialogues, and you get to hear that men actually say that women are good managers at home. So we want to reach a point where the country sees women as good managers as well when it comes to the politics of the country.
Okay.
Yes.
But it looks like it could be a generational thing, that previous generations or generations that are exiting leadership are the ones that have had problem with women representation, because the current girl child is more empowered than any other in our history in terms of education, in terms of affirmative action, even in joining universities. They've actually left the boy child miles away. Yet we're still struggling with getting women to elective positions.
There's a question you asked about whether we are represented in county assemblies or in the parliament. As for me, like I'm a nominated MCA. I was when I was 24 years old. So you see, the current government, at least it tried while nominating. Because like, for example, in Kiambu, you can see someone who is 24. You can see someone who was selling fruits, mama mboga. You can see a boda guy who was also nominated. Unaona mpaka mama mwenye ni YCD, amekuwa MCA. So that's how you can see like Kiambu County. Currently we're donating sanitary towels to to the schools. Why? Because there's someone who may be a fruit seller who could not afford that sanitary towel. So she understands the pain of lacking one. But way back, you could see an MP nominating his sister or her sister, the wives, you know, the girlfriends, but at least the current government, it tried.
Are you saying it's different now? Because we've had instances where it's been said that people who actually get this nomination slots, especially at the county level, they're mostly girlfriends.
No, actually, since I'm there, I can tell you, like for example, once you come to Kiambu, you can see someone who's literally, atakwambia mimi nauza matunda pale soko. Mimi nilikuwa kwa bodaboda, which is true. Mwingine hata nimemaliza university juzi, so I know the pain of student ama comradeship. So and then unapata mwingine alikuwa mtu wa bodaboda, alichaguliwa, wengine akanominitiwa. So at least the president alijaribu sana kumekisha mtu mwenye amenominitiwa at least either alikuwa na campaign, akaanguka, akapewa ki. So at least the people were there, they are qualified. Yeah. At least there's some change compared to the last.
They already had some political achievements.
Yeah, so they know
before the nomination.
Yeah, so the person who was given that position, someone was willing to serve Wanjiku before, and then she was given a chance to prove herself. So at least the current government tried while giving out nominations. Because like for example, there was this guy from Meru, alikuwa ananyang'anywa kiti. The president made sure amerudishwa kiti yake. Kama ana pesa, ama akona pesa. So at least there's some change in the county assemblies. That's what at least you can see. There's some things that the president promised, at least they are being achieved. Though it's slowly, but at least you get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Fred, maybe before you continue, it begs also the question of mentorship. Can we have a point where we can have intergenerational mentorship from those who've been there before to the new entrants who are getting into the political field and are women? So if they can be mentored by those who've been there before, then they will be able to follow in the footsteps and also learn about politics, because some of them or most of them just come into politics very green. And so if we could have maybe a situation where there's the generational mentorship from the leaders who've been there before to the younger ones, then it could change the narrative.
What you just mentioned reminds me of this infamous, if I may call it that, case at the Senate, where one of the young nominated senators was suspended, Gloria Orwoba, just the other day, and she was one of the most vocal senators. So as far as leadership and policy thoughts is concerned, she's okay. But in terms of her conduct within the assembly, and there were questions raised, do you really think that the system is skewed against women?
Well, Fred, that's a very fine line between good and morals and laws. I think it goes a long way to show what our country believes in and what it stands for. I mean, sexual harassment is something that we must not entertain in our public spaces. It gets even worse than that when you're on a campaign trail. But if some of these things happened in more advanced democracies, you'd see either both of them or one of them resigning and saying, no, let's first sort out this matter. But again, as we wait for the courts to give directions, because I'd really want to understand what really happened, we are at an age and time where we've seen either party is taking advantage of the other. So it would be in our place to wait and see what the court decides on the matter, as it's a very sensitive matter in the August House.
Granted. Esther, you mentioned the fact that in Kiambu County, for example, the nomination of MCAs, especially the women, followed some sort of pattern. So is it an issue with the political parties? Because we've had these parties previously, and the nomination, especially for MCAs, has been criticized, has been questionable, as being what can we say, vulnerable to cronyism and nepotism and even friendship, girlfriends mostly. Do you think that parties are performing better now?
Yeah, according to me, UDA, at least they've tried. Like for example, go to Kiharu. I've seen the Mheshimiwa Denyoro. He nominated a boda person, an ECD Mheshimiwa, Mama Mboga, who was selling kiosk, at the market. Then at least the one who was campaigning, but she failed, so she was given an opportunity to lead. You can see, like, for example, he has a sister or sisters, but he opted to give another person an opportunity to lead, to at least to mentor them for the next. Maybe if you want to lead in the near future, at least amekupea platform ya kujijenga ukuwa a better person in future. But at least, you see, like, for example, we could hear some people complaining, or MP complaining, oh, janipea opportunity, you know, ningeka sistangu. But at least the president was so tough, together with his deputy, give someone who deserved that position. That's why you could see most of people complained, like, mbona mimi sijaekwa, nilikuwa nafaa kuwa hapo. But at least, even though not 100%, they tried to give the person who was qualified that position. Then there's something else we see about women, like they are being mentored, or they are way better than the boy child. Go to mashinani, utapata hata kumbe hata hakuna kitu imefanywa kwa wanawake. They are still getting married early. They still thinking of FGM going on. They still thinking of these things of maybe in pay 15 pay pad, pay nini. So you see, girls are still struggling. I don't think we are being mentored better than the boys. You
still don't think you are at par?
Sana.
Yes.
Bado hatujafika hapo kusema to women are being mentored. Hakuna. If you go to mashinani, achana mambo ya town. If you go to the real Wanjiku huko mashinani, utapata tuko mbali sana mwanamke kwa mentored.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're watching Morning Cafe. The situation and the conversation is getting interesting. We'll be back to continue this conversation on the women perspective, even as we look at what is happening at the Bomas of Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. A quick reminder of our top story this morning. More than 1,500 party members and guests are expected to attend a United Democratic Alliance Party National Governing Council meeting today at the Bomas of Kenya, led by party leader President William Ruto. The meeting is intended to lay strategies to strengthen the party ahead of elections slated for December this year. This inaugural NGC comes amid calls for the dissolution of affiliates within Kenya Kwanza, a message that UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala has restated severally. Malala says the party will launch a movement targeting 50 million members that will be driven at the grassroots level. Also, a reminder of a question this morning: do you support the proposal to reduce the number of constituencies to about 100? You can continue giving us your feedback at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook. We're still in studio with Esther Irungu, nominated MCA, Angel Mbuthia, Youth League Chair, Jubilee Party, and Nellie Chepkemoi Langat, politician and a national youth leader. Let's continue with this discussion and look at some of the other issues happening at the Bomas of Kenya. And just before that, there's that whole question about women empowerment that I think Esther tried to respond to at the very tail end of that session just before we went on a break. And I'd like you to respond to it as well. Women have been given continuously and consistently a lot of opportunities. And you must agree that those who have gone to colleges and universities, women got preferential treatment for decades now. And the question is, affirmative action till when? That all this was meant to push the girl child through the education system to ensure that she has all the right skills, that she could fight for herself, even in the political space. Listening to you, you're still saying, oh, we're still not able to fight for ourselves in the political space. We still need affirmative action. And we're asking affirmative action till when?
Fred, that's... I think you have answered that question in your own version, because I think you pointed out our history of the Beijing Women's Conference of 1995. And for the whole world to arrive at that, it took a whole 3 other decades since the World War, because that's when the emancipation of women began, and going all the way to the Beijing Conference. And now that trickled down to Kenya, and it now shaping our 2010 constitution. There's so much fights that we've had over the past years, and looking at since when we passed this new constitution, we've had some bit of gains here and there. But then again, we have so much that we have not done at the grassroots, at the root of this problem, where if Parliament cannot simply pass the sex education bill so that kids in school can be taught about issues to do with sex. We are seeing things to do with teenage pregnancies on the rise. We had COVID-19. We have had so many girls not going back to school. It was not a question of the boys not going back to school. It was a question of so many girls not being able to go back to school because of teenage pregnancies. We are still agitating on the issue of sanitary towels. Can we have farms in Kenya or in East Africa manufacturing these things so that they can be available for free? Until we answer those questions, then we can be able now to talk about affirmative action at the highest level. Because when you talk about nominations to county assembly, to parliament, I think the question in the spirit of making of our constitution 2010, it was to ensure that there was representation of women in our highest levels of leadership. So when you have questions, when you have people questioning the role of women reps in our parliaments, I find that very absurd, because I mean, they need more money if they need to build roads or build schools in their own counties. They need more, I mean, they need more structures placed where they are, because it was given to that space as a way of ensuring that there's representation. But until we address the nitty-gritties of ensuring that girls have equal opportunities at that level, if it's proper transition from primary school to high school, from high school to university, that elevation must still go on the same way it goes on for boys, to ensure, then you can say that, okay, now we can open up the field for everybody.
Okay, the Constitution 2010 was supposed to remedy a lot of issues that have been ailing this country for the longest period. One of them was issues about equality and equity. Yet 13 years later, we still find ourselves discussing the same issues over and over again. Countries like Rwanda, for example, have managed to cross and overtake us in that issue of representation, where they have at least half or more than half of their parliament having women as representatives. What is the issue with Kenya? We have one of the best and most progressive laws that you can find anywhere in this continent.
Yeah, so our issue, number one, I'm glad you've mentioned Rwanda, because Rwanda is normally the country that's given an example to when it comes to women leadership, when it comes to policies. And I think from our research and some reading, we normally hear that they actually get some of their laws from our laws. But I think the issue with us, Kenya, is three things for me. Number one is the issue of corruption. This is the elephant in the room anywhere in Kenya when it comes to anything politics, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to representation. So until we can address the elephant in the room, that is corruption, then some of these things we'll start seeing them work. Number two, which is among the 3 points that I'm saying, is the lack of political goodwill. if we could have a leadership in this country that really supports and fights for women in this country. And it starts right from the political parties, because I want to believe political parties, nominations, the party activities, they all form a basis of an election. So if we could strengthen political parties and the political party structures within the political parties to be able to give women a voice when it comes to the decision making and being at the decision table, then I want to believe this will work. Number 3 is, I think for me, number 3, I would also say it begs the question of participation. How much do we even involve the citizenry when it comes to issues and conversations that concern women? If we can be able to go back to the citizenry and let them know and have the conversations that I was telling you, they will start changing their mindset. These will start getting into their minds that women are possible, women can do this. We are not telling our men, or rather the people outside there, that women are better than the men, but we're only telling them that women can also offer this alternative kind of leadership to what you're offering.
The question then begs, is it for the women to sit back and wait to be given these opportunities? Because currently we are having a discussion, a big discussion in what is headlining on many of the front pages of the dailies, about a national consciousness towards a possible review of the Constitution.
I think when, okay, sorry, I had to cut you short, but I would want to think if we can maybe level the ground for women, because I want to believe the ground is not yet leveled. We have so many dynamics that are preventing women to get to a level where we can say, now I can stand up and come out and vie for this position actually without fear. Because when I tell myself today, when I tell all of you here, I want to vie for a political office, number one question one of you might ask me is, do you have the resources? Do you have enough resources? So number one, that is another issue. There's lack of resources. The issue that I'm saying, there's no level playground for women. There's issue of security. The way you'd be handled in a campaign trail is not the same way I would be handled. So there's that aspect as well. Until we can level the playground for women, then we can say we are there. But so far, not yet there.
I'm looking at a report by the UN report, I think from earlier this year, that says that although the population of women make up more than 50% of Kenya's population, only about 24.8%, that's less than a quarter of elected seats in the National Assembly and Senate is occupied by women. And it points out the fact that online harassment risks are the ones pushing Kenyan women out of politics. Esther, social media is huge, and TikTok, X, Facebook. How much of this can you say, or how much of the interactions on social media can you say have really affected women and stopped them from taking part in politics or even seeking elective seats?
I'll give you an example with me. When I came to politics when I was 22 years old, I was in my third year campus. And when I came to the groups, just ni siasa zinaanza, unaongezewa kwa group, who is this called Madam Governor Esther, msichana mdogo, you know. So one thing, I was attacked, like, hii ilikuwa kali. You know, I used to sleep, I cry. Najiuliza, huyu ni mimi. You know, unashangaa, like unatusiwa, you're like, huyu ni mimi ama ni Esther mwingine. So I was, before nizoe, ama hiyo shock, nipate hiyo shock ya kuabsorb, matusi yote, it took time. So if it was someone else, most of women now withdraws. Because you're like, if my mom sees this, if my husband akiona hii, if my kid sees this. So you see, so napata hizo bomba zinaharibika, and then you're like, before nipoteza bomba yangu, then ni step aside kwa hii siasa kuliko nichafue. Because siasa ni game chafu sana. So for, like, I guess we need some security kwa hii cyberbullying. We need, like, government should take a serious action. If anyone body shame you, if anyone shares your, you know, the photo shoot, Photoshop. Yeah, Photoshop. You know, those nasty things. I guess the government should take actions with that, because you see, most of them, they affect women compared to men, because the society judges women harshly compared to men. So I guess the government should take some serious action the cyberbullying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Angel, you're also a youth league chair. You're part of a political party.
Yeah.
Do you agree that online harassment plays a huge part in blocking women from politics?
Yes, I think it does. However, I would say it's not centrally the main issue, because I mean, you can stay off social media if you want to, and still have a campaign that is managed by your campaign team. But some of the things that are grotesque was when I saw Kirinyaga woman rep being harassed in her own county. That sent chills down my spine. That made me think twice about what are we getting ourselves into as young women into this political space. You see how she was manhandled, how she had to go to hospital. She got an injury on her head, so they had to bring down her hair. I felt so bad about that. I want to send an encouragement to her wherever she is, that she needs to keep serving her county. I mean, we are looking up to her, because that is something that really sent chills down my spine. Even the campaign trail is mad with a lot of threats, violent threats. We've had women having bullet shots on their cars. Those are things that will send chills down my spine. When your kids are being threatened, when your family is being threatened, when there's revenge porn, that's another thing that we need to also talk about, and not even talk about, we need to legislate, we need to criminalize that. When you defame someone, and Kenyans are very good at talking about these things that unite Kenyans, but that should not really be the case. We should run campaigns around that, and that goes to the civil society, the same ones that have published that report on online harassment, that we need to talk down against that if you share something that is inappropriate, there should be consequences for that. Yeah.
Nellie, what has been your experience?
For me, my experience, I wouldn't say that online harassment really contributes a bigger percentage to making women rather not go for political seats. Because just like I've mentioned, there is other dynamics that prevent women from going for political seats. But then if you get to a point where you're harassing me, that I feel my mental state is not really in a good position to even lead the people that I intend to lead, then it becomes a compromise. Hence, might make, not me, but it might make someone lose the bid for that. But I wouldn't say, for me, I would just want to say that I think for a country like ours, we need to get to a point where we empower our women to get into these political or rather public offices. But again, it starts from the political parties. How can we strengthen these institutions? How can we strengthen the women leagues and the youth leagues in our political parties to be able to give the women and the young people a voice when it comes to the decisions of the party? Because just like I've said, everything that happens in a political party forms the basis of an election. Okay. So if we can sort that thing, then we can have a better future ahead. And
Fred, when she talks about political parties, that's something that we also need to look into as a country, because I feel that, like, let's say the issues that we've been having turbulent moments in the Jubilee Party, just because we have certain quarters that are very much interested in the political space. I think Kenya is a democratic country. We have fought for multi-party democracy in 1992. This is something I'm enjoying in my late 20s. And having a government wanting to interfere with the political affairs of a party is something that should be uncalled for. And just like we saw with COVID-19 outbreak, that it happened in Wuhan, but it came to affect someone in Kabianga. So the same way, we are seeing hands on Jubilee Party, the same way we are asking hands off Jubilee Party, and to tell other quarters, other political parties, that even if you keep quiet on matters happening around another political party, just know you could be next. Okay. Yeah.
Speaking of political parties, today the UDA is holding its National Governing Council at the Bomas of Kenya. Esther, you're a member of that party, and you've spoken about how gender responsive that party has been. It is the biggest party right now in terms of parliamentary numbers, even in the county assemblies. It is the biggest party indeed. So definitely whatever decisions are made will guide or set a standard for the other parties. This NGC is as a precursor to the elections expected in December this year. Political parties in Kenya rarely hold elections. Most of those party positions are usually just they're just nominated and appointed. Right now, the party chairperson is a woman. The SG, just before Cleophas Malala, was a woman. But we are seeing that some changes are expected, probably the naming of 2 deputy party leaders. Right now we only have 1 deputy party leader, that's the deputy president. If at all 3 of them party positions are expected. Dailies are talking about names of 2 men. And the question goes back to, it is your party. Why are women not able to fight for these positions? They can only be able to, they can only get there through appointment.
But how sure are you they're men?
Well, this is just prediction. I'm saying, I'm not even sure.
If Sister Mbarire can be the chair, why are you saying there are 2 men? Because you see, it's rare, even the current Jubilee, couldn't see women holding the big positions. But at least with UDA, at least you can see the former SG was a woman who is currently the nominated senator. Even you can see Sister Mbarire. You can see people like Governor Iguru, who has been leading our party during the speeches. You know, at least with our party, women are given a priority to lead. And again, if there's something you said about the mentorship, we are given a position of woman rep. That's pure women. How many women rep have mentored young girls? If that's only a free position women can hold freely, have we seen them mentoring young girls? Because you see now mentorship starts who the person who's sitting there. Because you see before president nominates a woman, it means the women who are there must also be able to hold other women, their hands. The current, you can see the former woman rep, Oranga County, mentored the current woman rep who is there. Maybe she was once the PA, compare with director wa maji. We can also see the former PA, Liz, who is the MCA Kinyona. At least you can see the Muranga, the woman rep, at least with the 2 former PAs, they are somewhere. But how many women have mentored their fellow women? Because you see, most of women fight each other. Come to Muranga, you can see that we have CS Wahome. Currently, there are 2 women, MPs, who are fighting her. Instead of supporting her, so that even the president can see women wanashikana mkono. So if I pick one from them, hakuna vita mingi. But you see now women fight among each other. So even the opportunities that are there, before even instead of looking for more opportunities, they are fighting for that little opportunities that are there. So even getting ahead is a problem. But at least with the President Ruto has tried in terms of giving women opportunity to lead.
Okay, coming back to the issue of parties, because it would be we would assume that the party and issues being caucused around parties, that it is generally a safer space as opposed to the general political field out there. It can get chaotic and uncontrollable. But within the party itself, within NGCs, NDCs, internal party elections, it was assumed that it would be a safer space and therefore women would be able to fight for their space within there. You are a youth league chair, Jubilee Party. Do you think that space within the Jubilee Party is safe enough for you to actually vie for a substantive elective position as an official of the party?
I'd like, first of all, to build on what Mheshimiwa is talking about on women fighting for that space. There's this notion that with every pie, women get a third, at least a third. And a third is now where women now come to fight for that. So even when there's a gathering and people are speaking, you hear someone saying, let me speak. You hear a woman saying, let me speak on behalf of women. At least let's have one woman speaking. So it's usually very few slots allocated and defined to be for women. And it becomes very difficult because the 50% of the population want to fight for this a third.
Whatever
and that becomes,
to the women.
Yes, this is what they, and when you want to fight for these other things, it becomes, no, you go fight for that corner over there. That's where women are supposed to be. It's like another kitchen altogether. So they are the downplays of that. But again, a political party space is generally a place where you can get experience. I like what I experienced at the Jubilee Party, sitting at the National Executive Council and being around all these experienced and seasoned politicians from the likes of Nerito Moreithi, Nellie, Torome, who was a former PAS, and being with them and talking about politics and dissecting politics is an experience that I'm quite excited about. I mean, even having these discussions here are pretty much informed from the experience I have gained all through that process. And even looking at the legal battles that we've had to go through, because we have certain quarters not wanting to keep away the very nice Jubilee Party.
I didn't even ask you which wing of Jubilee.
No, of course, my party leader is His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and my Secretary General is Jeremiah Kioni. And together we are pushing the agenda of Kenyans. We have some of the representation at Bomas. I'm not very much excited about what I'm seeing at playing out at Bomas. We are not bringing out women issues more prominently in the dialogues. Politics are taking more center stage. And no one has mentioned that we are buying sanitary towels at 70 shillings a pack, or tissues are going for 45 shillings a piece.
Isn't that the issue, that even women themselves want to talk about the plight of the girl child and issues that affect women folk? Yet there are bigger discussions that the country is getting involved in beyond the two-thirds gender rule, beyond gender issues, that women should be at the forefront about talking about the cost of living. It affects you directly. Issues to do with representation, boundaries review, the formation of the IEBC Commission. That those are the conversations women leaders should be having, and not just confining themselves to issues around the girl child and women folk.
Okay, so Fred, one thing that I would like to say, I think when we were continuing with the conversation, Mheshimiwa at one point said that siasa ni ngumu, siasa ni chafu. And it's always been a notion that for you to get to politics, you need to be aggressive, you need to fight, you need to have that fighting spirit. But who said it's a must? That's why I'm also bringing in the concept of, can we also feminize politics? Let it not always be aggressive. We are all different people. I might have a different approach to my politics. My style of politics might be through dialogues. My style of politics may come from a point of soft-spokenism, you get. But now when I come in and you're telling me, for you to be able to, if I'm a member of parliament, for example, you tell me I have to lobby other members, I have to fight, I have to be this vocal, I have to create some controversy, then it already creates a barrier for me if you want me to perform well, because I may be having my different style of politics. So I think for me, it should rather be a rallying call to our political class, our political elite, and that this is a call to the president, to my party leader, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, and to other political parties, that I think it's high time. We've reached a time and point where we need to say that let us give women a chance. Let us give young women a chance. The women seated here are very well capable, so who knows, if you give us a chance, we might as well surprise you.
For the first time, we're having the biggest parties planning elections, Esther. The UDA party in December, and the ODM party, the second biggest party in parliament, sometime in January or February next year. This has not happened in Kenya's history for a very long time. I think the last party election used to be with a KANU. Yes, after that, parties have not really had elections. That could be part of the weakness, that women have not really gotten a chance at the party level to exercise their strength, to actually vie for not just a women representative seat, but just a national party seat. Do you think that this time around that will be different? Especially with the UDA that has already signed a charter with women.
You have the grassroots elections. At least that will mostly, you have seen the youth don't have a job. So no, let's not get out from the women thing, because you see women is a whole thing. But at least now is a chance to give the young women a chance to lead at the grassroots level. So at least now is a chance to showcase our, because you can be elected as a ward level. Who knows whether it can be the MCA. Once you're elected at the county level, can the next governor. This now it's showcasing whether you are a leader, how you can lead, and also it's a chance that His Excellency is giving people opportunity to lead. Because you see now what is anataka kuonyesha, si must to woman rep for you to lead. You can also lead at the party, at constituency, ward level, county level, even the regional level. At least with that is a mentorship itself. Needs a mentorship itself. But at least this is mtu mchoyo. Because you see, I've seen most of the parties on a pickpocket. Their favorite. Wenda pale. So hata mtu maybe sio kiongozi, lakini juu umempenda majuu ya pesa, amepewa chance ya kuongoza. But at least with you, you have seen the fairness with the elections. Yeah.
Okay.
Fred, just to build on that conversation, I liked what I was looking at on page 7 of the Daily Nation, and it is showcasing on Politics 101, The Voice, it's showcasing Umulkher Mohammed, the youngest nominated member of parliament from Garissa County, and she talks about how Raila held her hand to parliament. And this is one of the women I saw in the Azimio campaign, really campaigning for their presidential candidate. And that, her and many others like Rene Mayaka, and I have seen them going through very rigorous political spaces even before in the youth space, and see them get into volunteering in a political party. And now they're members of parliament. I think political parties are a space for you to grow if you want, and not grow if it's a place for you to learn and excel. It's like a school. It's an academy of politics. And I think for anyone who wants to for anyone who wants to get into politics, that's one of the best platforms to learn the ropes. Because when you look at the, if me and Nellie and Esther want to start a political party, number one, I need a registration fees of 250,000 Kenya shillings first. I need to have 24 physical locations across the country in different counties to ensure that I meet some of that threshold. So political party spaces of the existing parties that are there are spaces where young women and the youth can really get into and clinch on spaces.
Do you think they are that open, like for the example Jubilee? Because my question is, do you feel confident enough that within Jubilee you can vie for a position that has nothing to do with women, or even the youth? You can just say, I'm going for national chairperson or national secretary general.
Yes, definitely. Because I mean, that is a space where you interact with everybody, and it's all about strategy. And when you're in the political space and you want to run for any political seat, whether it's a women's seat or a non-women's seat, the strategy, the school of strategy of politics is still the same. Whether you want to become the chairman or the chairwoman of a cattle dip, or to become speaker or become president, the politics are the same. So once we also lift that veil of our eyes and see that politics is politics no matter where you are, in America, in Uganda, in Kenya, equally the same. It's just that the ball game is different. However, one place I tend to think should be included in the 1,000 Ways to Die is to become IEBC commissioner. That is where the hit is.
Well, that discussion is actually alive at the Bomas of Kenya. And it is going to be the biggest discussion right now, given the kind of timelines we are looking at. Heading to the next elections, we still don't have an IEBC. There's a whole crisis on boundaries review that's coming up. This is a space that women need to get involved in this conversation. Whoever is appointed chairperson, the IEBC, whoever is appointed into that commission, whoever gets the opportunity to actually get involved in the delimitation of boundaries as well. It is those conversations that I'm asking whether or not women are ready to get into. Even at the Bomas of Kenya, the National Dialogue Committee that is sitting at the Bomas to canvass all this agenda and getting the proposals from other members of the country. We are not seeing the space of women. We are not seeing the faces of women as being represented around that table. I'm sure there are women around that table, but probably they're not as vocal. Why is this? Because we're coming from a space, looking at our political history, where we have politicians like Charity Ngilu, Martha Karua, Professor Wangari Maathai, who had this national level outlook, not necessarily waiting to be held by other politicians and being led to certain positions of appointment.
So it goes back to my point, Fred, the mentorship. How are we, you see, you're mentoring, I mean, you've mentioned this crop of women leaders that were, you know, it's like that was their time. But right now we are having an emergence of a new crop of women leaders.
That is waiting to be handed?
No, we are not waiting. We are not waiting to be handed. We are saying we are a new crop, or rather a new cadre of leadership that maybe has a different style to our politics. Just like, so my number one point is the mentorship. Can we have the intergenerational mentorship? The women you're mentioning, Akinangilu, can they hold our hands? Because they already have the experience or rather an influence when it comes to the national platform. So if they can mentor us and offer us that platform, then we can be able to follow in their footsteps and even come up and now be able to also mentor those who come after us. So the style of politics is different. We just need to maybe have that mentorship that I'm saying. Because just like I've also mentioned, my style might be different. When they were getting to politics, maybe they were getting used to the aspect of being politicians who are vocal, very aggressive. But then here is me saying that I'm bringing in this concept of can we feminize politics? It doesn't have to be aggressive.
You mentioned that your party leader is Raila Odinga.
Yes.
So you're talking about ODM.
Yes.
ODM's grassroots elections coming up early next year. With that kind of the style you are proposing for women to adopt, or your style of politics, where you say you feminize politics, do you think that will suffice in the kind of environment we've seen ODM operated?
Well, maybe in different regions. I come from a region that maybe their style of politics might not, I mean ODM, but the politics of ODM in Narok County might not be the same as the ones in Nyanza. So that's why I'm saying let us reach to a point where it doesn't have to necessarily be aggressive. Because if I'm a soft-spoken person, or rather my style of politics comes from a soft background, then you still expect me to fight with the same people who are very aggressive for me, then you're already creating a barrier for me.
Okay.
So,
yes, Esther.
There's something I wanted to say. You know why we don't see most of women and youth in politics? Because one thing, politics is volunteering. For you to be noticed, lazima ujitume. You have to volunteer a lot. Like I remember earlier last year, like Mheshimiwa Dende once called me and told me, Esther, yes, you are vocal, you are what, but who is able to notice you? Unaweza jitolea sana, lakini unajituma mpaka kiasi gani? Most of youths, they are expected, unaitwa, unapewa kitu kidogo, unaenda nyumbani. But wangapi wana volunteer? Because for you to be mentored, pia wewe lazima uitikia to sacrifice your time, your resources to go and be mentored. So you see most of women and now the youth, they just want to be paid, or they want to like, why you, unanipa pesa ngapi? But are they ready to be mentored? For example, me I volunteered to UDA at His Excellency Githu Gachagua. By then even he wasn't the deputy president, but I was called. Esther, I want you to go volunteer to a certain office. If I said no, could I be an MCA right now? I couldn't be one. So I volunteered for around 6 to 7 months. With no salary, nothing. Just waking up in the morning, going to the office, serving the party, serving, the guests. But how many people, when I was there, only 3 women were there. The rest were men. Why? They could come and see that there's no money, you're suffering a lot, una pesa, so watu ukipewa chai, the whole day you're okay. If there's no food, you're still okay, because what you want is to be mentored. And it's through that volunteership that unapewa kazi. But how many are ready to volunteer? That is the question. Okay. Most of them, they just want to be paid. Unanipa pesa ngapi? So if you're not paying me, I just go. But do you have that experience? You see, you need also some small experience. And that experience that comes with volunteering. If you hear a certain Chepkemoi is there, can you go and at least get some 2 or 3 words? What is done? You just observe, you just hear, and at least with time, hata ukipewa your position ya kuwa kiongozi, will be a very good leader. So most of the youths and young women are not ready to volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's there's a question asked about the youth and their approach to issues that affect them directly. Right now, there's the issue of university funding that has affected so many. Many have not been able to gain access to universities, public universities, because of some confusion with the new university funding model. And I've hosted youth around this panel before, and the agreement is that the current Kenyan youth is not interested in fighting for his or her space, that something could be affecting you directly, but you'll sit back at home and just chill.
Yeah.
Because most of our leaders today are a product of student leadership from universities. Yet we are seeing a crop of university student leaders who are not able to lead their ilk towards fighting for what really affects them directly. Do you think that, and away now from the women, that probably even as a young woman you're suffering from those two afflictions, as a woman and as a youth, that you're sitting back and waiting for things to happen?
Fred, you've touched a very soft spot in my heart because I have been birthed from student activism. I am a former vice chair of the Students' Organization of Nairobi University. I have fought for students' rights, and it's one of the things I enjoy doing. And one thing I can confirm is that the draconian Duale Bill of 2016 really came to muzzle young people in universities. It is the University Amendment Bill that was passed by Parliament to ensure that students are not able to elect their own leaders directly. It's not a popular vote. So when you look at we turned 60 in December, and when you look at the leaders and the movements, as you've mentioned, came from the student leadership space. It is the cream of society. Now there's this also draconian reform for the education sector, and it is coming down to muzzle students entirely. And there's none of them really coming out boldly to speak out on this. I'm really challenged by this. I'm calling out to our parliamentarians to really revise that bill. And I'm also calling out to university student leaders, come on, let us not allow ourselves to be muzzled by this law, because I know it is so much for them. It has really gagged them even in terms of going to the press and speaking about their issues. Student leaders are being summoned to disciplinary cases every now and then, every time they speak on national issues. What time, if a student leader cannot speak on education issues, what time will they speak on political issues? Because I'd want to hear the voice. Oh dear, sorry. I'd want to hear the voices of students on the Cherera 4. What do they think about it? On when we talk about opening of servers, students are the ones who really come to dissect issues politically, economically, and socially. I am not seeing that, and we are going to miss out a lot moving forward, because if we keep on entertaining this law, we are going to miss out on so many great leaders that could be birthed from leadership in the university. There's so much that I have learned just by being a university student leader, because you interact with Parliament, you interact with State House. I am where I am because of the student leadership movement. Yes. And not seeing that playing out in the national space because of our leaders, because of leaders who do not want to see other leaders coming up, is something that really should not be entertained in this space. And when you talk about the education sector and the reforms that have been proposed, you've seen what Parliament did about 2 days ago by saying no to some of the reforms that had been proposed by the task force, after spending over 200 million Kenya shillings, and the president promising that we are going to scrap out CBC, and then it goes back to Parliament, and Parliament says, where they claim to be the majority as UDA or Kenya Kwanza, and saying no to reforms that have cost taxpayers money over 200 million Kenya shillings, and then saying, no, we need to go back to the drawing book. We need to say that, the education Ministry of Education did not follow certain steps. Now we have to go back and do all that. I mean, what kind of country are we living in?
But by allowing the older generation to make so many decisions that could affect an entire generation, in as far as even the education is concerned, failure by that huge chunk or this cohort of the youth to probably gain university education will have consequences in a few years' time, meaning that quite a number of young Kenyans will not have the necessary education background to even get involved in national discourse. Yeah. That in itself is a problem. It does not mean that the older generation is always right. They make some decisions which are not right for this country. If at all they are not questioned, and questioned by those who are affected directly by these issues, then who will rectify any mistake that is made, given the fact that now Kenyan youth are just sitting back and waiting to do it with a different approach, as you suggested, a dialogue and a feminized way of doing it?
Yeah, so I think I would agree with what Angela said, because even when you look at the current talks that are ongoing at Bomas, I don't think we've even had to see a situation where we've had to see a youth or even a student leader appear before the committee to just air out their submissions orally. Because there was a rallying call, or rather a call where we had submissions. I submitted because one of the issues when I'm submitting memorandums to even Parliament, I normally go back to the students. I ran a CBO in Kisumu and Maseno County in the Nyanza region, where whenever there's calls for public participation, we never miss to go to the student leaders. So if we cannot involve them in whatever concerns them, then how do you expect them to even care about whatever is happening? But we will not relent. Are you
saying the youth are least interested in this national discourse that's currently going on?
It's not that they're not least interested. It's just that I would want to say, it's just that they have no, that, how do I call it? They don't have that capacity, or rather the space or opportunity to air out. If we can only give them these spaces.
We're coming back to the same thing. Give them. Power is taken. We started with this statement. Power is taken.
You see, you go to Mashinani for public participation. And let me tell you something, because, you know, MCs go to the ground. Do you know when you call them, they don't come? And if they do, it's just one or two. So imagine the youth are not nyumbani, then the mother or the parents come. So then how will the youth air their views? Yeah, they're at home. Some of them opt to drink, they opt to sleep, they opt just to stay at home, just relax when their issues are being discussed. So in that meeting for public participation, you see like someone is sending the mother, the dad, the grandfather, you know, the grandparents, and then how would the views be issued?
Can I respond?
Yet you're not there.
Yeah.
You know, even sometimes you wonder, you're discussing some serious issues about youth, but they're not there.
They're least interested.
I would like to respond. Let's say, for example, the cost of living. How do you want to convince me, Mheshimiwa, to come to a public participation? Well, it is important, I agree. But if I come to a public participation, air out my views, for example, if I may quote the infamous Finance Act, the youth gave out their submissions. The youth gave out their concerns.
Did they?
Yes, yes, they did. They did because I was part of the youths. I went around the country collecting youths' views on the Finance Act. But now what happens when we air out our issues gets to the floor of the August House. But because of the cannibalization that goes on in Parliament, our issues end up getting lost.
But giving up an option now that the older generation is running things. They have ways of controlling. They have more experience in politics, so they will always find a way to get their way. But is giving up an option for the Kenyan youth? Because we are seeing a sense of disillusionment where people are not even interested. It gets a bit complicated to get funding for university. Forget about it. I don't have to go to school.
Fred, I think sometimes we use very archaic strategies to roll these things out. I think we need to rethink the platforms that we want to use to talk about participation. And when you look at what we are using now is a Constitution 2010, and we've gone through COVID, we have AI, we have exciting platforms where we can do all those things. That all I think we need to do is to be more creative in how we get views from young people. I mean, guys are wearing Crocs and socks to town and all that. Is a whole generation that we need to think about. They are wearing t-shirts written, "We have left the church but not God." Those are people who have a certain kind of thinking that we need to sit back and ask ourselves, how are we going to deal with that generation? Because we think, me and all of us seated here as millennials, we think things should be done in a certain way, the way we have been socialized to think, to go to church on Sunday, to go to school, to study law, become a doctor. It is not necessarily the same case. People nowadays want to become YouTubers, and that is a career. These are the things we need to rethink of this generation. When you look at young people between the ages of 16 and 23, their thinking is completely different. Even as we gear towards the 2027 elections, or even as we are gearing towards a referendum, if it may be, or even as we have these dialogues and we want to include young people, we have to rethink our strategies completely. We have to go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, how do we want to move forward? People don't need to go and learn how to write CVs. AI can do that for you. I mean, so many solutions have been sorted out, and I know you want to ask me, what about the elite, those who can access, those who cannot? you would be very surprised
My
to see
question is about access,
how well.
yes, but it's because you've mentioned technology.
Yeah.
And there's a huge advantage there against
Yeah.
the older generation, that the younger generation have access to technology and they understand it and understand what opportunities are there.
Yeah.
But how come you've not been able to, the younger generation has not been able to harness this knowledge and advantage towards canvassing what is important to them?
Fred, let me just add a little bit and brag about Kenya over the past 5 or maybe 6 or so years, that we've had made so many tremendous strides in the field of ICT infrastructure. Kenya is ranked number 3 in Africa for having accessible technology, and those are platforms we need to use.
And the older generation MPs or politicians do not have that advantage. How come the Kenyan youth are not able to take that opportunity?
It's like judging an elephant and a fish on who swims better by giving community participation to places halls where they've never been to.
We are saying that this society depends now more and more on technology as opposed to this other way.
You see, most of them, they're just ignorant. Because you see, let me just say that, okay, I'm not being rude, because you see, like this thing of education, the new education funding, they were told, it was everywhere. But you see, most of them, like for example, you see someone saying, is a parent, Mheshimiwa, how do you apply? Then I asked the parent, do you have a kid? Yes. Akona simu mbona unanipigia simu? Kama kona simu.
Mbona mzazi ndo anapply?
Lakini hiyo ni kitu rahisi, unaingia kwa simu, after this, with the current government, is they're trying, at least there's a certain town center that there's network, there's free Wi-Fi, these public offices. So you see, the kid is just lazy. Yani hataki kuchoka, wewe ukae chini mzazi kufanyia kila kitu, wewe tu ni kwenda shule na mzigo. But how? Why? Mbona usichukue that extra time pia ujitume? So you see, mzazi, like our parents don't know about the digital thing. Like my mom retired this year and she was really struggling. She was a head teacher. Oh, Esther kuja nionyeshe mambo ya network. But you see, the same kid want the parent to do everything for them. How? Because so most of the time you see the deadline is coming, the deadline will be met, yet you have not submitted your details and you'll be left out. So you'll be left out complaining, but it was your work to go at least get an extra mile. You Google how it's been done.
This disconnect, how will it change?
Nawashwa. So while I was listening to her, and also you as well, there's something that's come up, the Ministry of Education here. So recently they gave out reforms, and it's like they shot before aiming first. So when these reforms, or rather whatever they had wanted to implement, and the parliament said no, the other day the Speaker of the House, Honorable Wetangula, said that the cabinet secretary has in no capacity, according to the constitution, to do whatever he is doing, because that was the work of the parliament. Then now you are talking about this student who is supposed to air out their concerns. So first thing, maybe they were not involved. Number 2, whatever you are doing, you are being told that it's wrong. So how do you expect again to come and convince this person that we also now want to come back to you now to give you this solution, or rather to change this for you? So how do you expect this same person to trust you first?
But
he's already grappling with the high cost of living, the effects of the high cost of living, the effects of the debt issue in Kenya. We're already surpassing 10 trillion debt. The interest rates keep rising. The shilling keeps depreciating. But this is a person who is fighting all these, and you're still telling them that when you have your views, so your views don't really matter. How do you really want this person to even care about what is happening with it? But then you said, is giving up the option. Giving up is not the option, because this is what we tell them out here, that you cannot ignore politics at all in this country. It affects how you live, it affects how you're governed. So at no point should no youth out there, I mean, I'm even begging all of you youths to really not give up on this. Help us help you. If you have people who can be vocal enough and be voices of reasoning on behalf of yourselves, let us support these people. If you see Angel is quite capable of airing my issues to Jubilee, let us support her. It also comes in with the issue of disconnect, that there's also a disconnect with the youths when it comes to
matters politics. If we can only have conversations where, in a creative way, just like Angel has said, to be able to involve them and let them know that once you're getting involved, then your issues will be able to be aired. If you get involved, after getting involved, what comes after, you will definitely have someone representing you on your behalf. So therefore, your issues are going to be aired, but it will only be aired if you are getting involved.
Okay.
Yes.
Because of time, I'll give you an opportunity each to give your final comments. Let's start with you, Angel.
Okay. Good. Well, I saw a lot of things based on the dialogues that are going on until Tuesday, and a lot of question on principle is coming out more than often. And we saw more of the presenters talking about ensuring that when you're elected in one political party, if you want to move to another political party, you lose your seat and ask for fresh mandate. And then the other question of having an audit of the just concluded election, they're all questions of principle, ensuring that there's equitable distribution of resources. They're all questions of principle. I think we really need to pay attention to that as Kenyans to ensure that if it's a matter of having our elections audited, that should be done. And what the Cherera 4 are raising are quite valid reasons. We saw the same in another election. We are seeing it again here. I think this is something we need to pay attention to as Kenyans because, everything rises and falls on leadership. And when we talk about the issues that we're seeing, the court settles the disputes, issues are being raised left and right. But I think more needs to be checked, especially in the aspect of auditing that election. And I think if the servers were opened, we'd be able to see that actually over 7 million Kenyans or 8 million Kenyans voted and supported a female deputy president.
Thank you. Esther?
One last thing is educate a woman, empower woman. Empower women to empower the next generation, empower women to bring developmental revolution. Women are in need of society, never spoil them. So mimi naambia vijana kazi iko. Wewe jitume na usichague kazi because the current generation wanachagua kazi sana. And it's through that small thing that it will bring a bigger thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Esther, finally, Nellie, anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to touch on maybe this is a rallying call to our fellow youths and the political class in this country. That from the discussions that we've just had, I think it's high time we give the young women and the youth an opportunity to lead us in this country. So I think it's time for new energy in our political spaces. And then I would also just want to maybe just ask the regime, Mheshimiwa, when you go to your meeting, please, just let your president know that the youths and the Kenyans are suffering. That if we could have a moment where the economy can be stabilized, can we have a moment where we say that we want to sort out the issue of economy? Let us lower the cost of living. If you want the country to really go ahead, if you want the youths to participate and even take part in such conversation, lower the cost of living for us. When you say you are sorting agriculture and you're only subsidizing fertilizers, you're not really helping us. Sort out the whole value chain. Let us see the cost of inputs going down. We were just coming from the African Climate Summit the other day. Can we see the government of the day implement climate smart practices to be able to even encourage more youth and women to now come in the agricultural sector? We've always said we are trying to beautify agriculture, but how do we beautify agriculture and ensure that all these people take part? So it's a rallying call to really give spaces and to also go back and listen to what the people are saying. That as a government, as the opposition, which is a government in waiting, ideally, let us always listen to the people and involve the citizenry in our issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nellie Chepkemoi Langat, politician and national youth leader, Esther Irungu, nominated MCA, Kiambu County, and Angel Mbuthia, Youth League Chair, Jubilee Party, our panelists this Friday in the Women's Perspective. Thank you so much for your opinions on the matters we've been discussing. You'll allow me to read this editorial comment as you come to the end of the session. Now, the anticipated deployment of 1,000 Kenyan police officers to assist in containing criminal gangs in Haiti has garnered both praise and skepticism. While Kenya's willingness to help a Caribbean nation facing a crisis is commendable, several concerns and questions must be addressed. First and foremost, there are legitimate concerns about the track record of the Kenyan police in handling dissent and protesters, which has been marred by allegations of human rights violations. Is this the record that we now eagerly seek to export and showcase on the international stage? Hopefully not. Secondly, the decision to send such a significant number of police officers abroad raises questions about Kenya's domestic security situation. Kenya currently faces its own pressing security challenges, including the resurgence of criminal gangs in Nairobi's ghettos, the persistent threat of the Al-Shabaab terror group in areas like Lamu, and armed inter-community conflicts in the North Rift region. Kenyans may wonder why resources and manpower are being allocated to an international mission when there are unresolved security issues at home that demand urgent attention. It is crucial for the Kenyan government to communicate effectively with its citizens and provide a compelling justification for this deployment to Haiti. Transparency about the mission, objectives, expected outcomes, and the benefits it may bring to the Kenyan Police Service should be emphasized, demonstrating that this international mission can enhance the professionalism and capabilities of Kenyan police officers could help garner more support from the public. Moreover, international deployments can indeed offer opportunities for the police officers to gain valuable experience, improve their skills, and strengthen their professionalism. This deployment could be seen